Hey everyone, Alawe here for the Button Smashers, and this is our review of Cursed Castilla for the PC. Now before we get too far into this one, I want you to go ahead and enjoy this awesome retro-themed intro. So Cursed Castilla comes to us from Locomalito and was published by Abbey Light Studios here on October 20th, 2016. And while it's a brand new addition to the Steam library, this game actually dates back to 2012. It was a Locomalito game, and it's one of many that they made inspired by their love of 80s and early 90s arcade-style games. But this release, though, it has been heavily updated. There's tons of graphical options available to you. If you don't like the retro look of the scan lines, you can actually change that for a more modern filtered version. You can also change the aspect ratio, whether you want the game forced to full screen or you want some arcade-style borders. All that stuff has been added to this release, in addition to some extra content, fine-tuning to the gameplay, updates a little bit on the graphics, and there are some extra stages as well. Now, through and through, this is truly an arcade experience, and the closest comparison I can give is probably to Ghosts and Goblins. Now, some of you probably are familiar with Ghosts and Goblins, at least I hope that you are, because it is an iconic arcade game. And of course, it was also updated and had several sequels over the years. One of them was Ghouls and Ghosts, which came out on the Genesis and also, of course, on the arcade platform. And Ghosts and Goblins is a game I played a lot as a kid, because I grew up in the 80s and 90s, and I may be a little bit older than some of our other editors. So I grew up in that time period, and I'm very familiar with Ghosts and Goblins, and it's a game that I was really frustrated with as a child. I would get really mad because you could only take 2 hits in that game, and then you were out. That was the end of your journey. Very frustrating, but that was kind of the point, though. It was meant to be really hard. So when I actually got to the end of the game, which took who knows how many tries, it was extremely rewarding, and I felt like I actually accomplished something. And not to give any spoilers away, it was also frustrating once you beat it the first time, and then you find out that the whole quest was actually an illusion by the Great Devil, and then you have to play through the whole game again in order to get the correct ending. Anyway, that aside, Ghosts and Goblins seems to be the primary influence on Cursed Castilla. Now, the good thing is that there is a lot of challenge here, and the game is extremely difficult, but unlike Ghosts and Goblins, you get a little bit more of a chance here. You actually can take 3 hits. You don't lose your armor when you get hit, which was kind of a weird quirk of Ghosts and Goblins, although it was pretty funny. But in this game, you can take 3 hits before you die, and you get a certain number of extra lives, and sometimes you'll get really lucky and get an extra life in the form of a crown that you'll discover going throughout the game. So that actually makes it a little bit easier in some ways, but the difficulty definitely ramps up once you get past the first stage. In fact, the second stage is actually quite hard compared to the first stage, and the third stage gets harder and so on. So the challenge does build up. You actually do get items that you can swap out, different types of weapons beyond the sword that you start with, and I've actually found that the sword, even though it's a default weapon, is actually really good. There is a 3-pronged dagger attack you can get, and that one's very effective. The axe is kind of hit or miss. And then there's also a firebomb attack, which is powerful, but it's kind of hard to land on some of the faster-moving enemies. So you want to be careful, depending on the stage you're in, whether you just go ahead and pick up these upgrades, or you actually decide to just press on through. Now, the game is heavily steeped in Spanish folklore. As you probably saw in the intro there, it does have a real-world setting. Now, obviously, the demons and all of that stuff is added, but it is based on some real stories, and some of the monsters you encounter are right out of Spanish mythology. So you may not be really aware of some of the Spanish folklore. I know I certainly wasn't, and I had to look up some of these creatures, but it is really neat, and I love games that have a real-world historical influence like that. Anyway, this game is, as I said, quite challenging, but quite rewarding. You can get it currently on Steam for just $10.79. I think the full price is going to be about $12, but the replay value is certainly there. Anyone familiar with these types of arcade experiences will definitely have fun here. The game has quite a bit to offer, And it does keep track of your high score, although when you get game over, you actually have to forfeit your high score if you want to continue. The good news is you can continue and the game does save your progress, so it kind of has that whole casual side to it too, that it's not just game over and you have to start the whole game over, you can press on, while of course encouraging you to go ahead and work on getting very high scores. Anyway, I'll try to do a little bit more in-depth review over at thebuttonsmashers.com. Definitely go check out some of our other content over there. We have some great editors that have done some amazing articles and amazing coverage here in the last couple months, and I'm really, really pleased to work with all of them. Anyway, guys, please like, subscribe, check out all the other videos in our channel, and I'll see you soon for some more awesome gaming fun.